guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. The summer break comes to a close and it's extended a little bit for me because we're one day late. I apologise massively. I was at Thruxton for the British Touring Car Championship over the weekend, and Monday at the time of recording, I've only just caught up with the race. It's 3:30 now, so yeah, there was no way it was ever going to get out for Monday. As much as in my own mind I thought I could have done it, but the speed of my laptop at the moment and how long this just generally takes, it wasn't possible. So you'll be seeing it Tuesday at 6 o'clock right now for the premiere. So, if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out of a maximum 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Look out for bonus points. Sometimes they're on offer for drivers that do something extra special during a race, and on the very rare occasion I do award minus points for someone that does something extra special but for all the wrong reasons. We're going to take a look at the current standings then, going into the final 9 rounds of the calendar. They are on the screen now. This is, of course, before I award the points this round. So see where your favourite driver is. Can you expect them to climb, fall, maintain position? Could you maybe even expect him to get disqualified like a couple of drivers already have? It's going to be interesting, that's for sure. So we're going to kick things off with the race winner, of course, Max Verstappen, and what a fantastic drive by Max this weekend. Got it on pole, but had to start at the back of the grid due to engine penalties, but back of the grid meant he actually started 14th because that was as back was getting. And then he ended up elevated by a couple of places because Tsunoda had a pit lane start, and also Gasly in the end had to start from the pit lane after missing his grid slot at the start. He had an electrical issue with the car, so immediately bumped him up a couple of places. And then in the race, lap 1, straight up to 8th place. And then he gained another couple of places, and he was gaining a position every lap pretty much at the start of that race, and was already in podium contention pretty much immediately, which is ridiculous, to be fair, isn't it? He made the soft tyres work, whereas all the other drivers were struggling on the soft compound with the temperatures. Contrast that to 12 months ago when this race didn't even happen. Yeah, crazy stuff, but he worked well, Red Bull worked well. This whole new floor design that's been implemented from this race weekend onwards, which in theory Mercedes whinged about and other teams whinged about to slow Red Bull and Ferrari down. Looks like it's sped Red Bull up, to be honest with you. So yeah, all fun and games there as always. Teams normally complain about things and it never ends up working their way. But yeah, overall, I mean, Max, what could be said? It was just smooth, perfect. We had one lap where it was like, get Checo out the way, and Checo got out the way, and he just decimated the entire field, didn't he, really? Yes, the car's strong. Yes, you know, he's got the best team on the grid now because Ferrari, even when they have the quickest car, dropped the ball. But here this weekend, it was Red Bull that had the fastest car throughout the entirety of the weekend. But to drive so cleverly through the field, absolutely wonderful stuff. So it's got to be nothing other than a full 10 points to Max. It was faultless this race weekend by him. Absolutely faultless. Did everything he could to be the highest starter of the people starting at the back. I mean, qualifying effectively was irrelevant. I didn't even bother watching qualifying because I was like, I'll just look at the grid positions from where they actually started rather than how it happened in qualifying, because I can imagine some cars. I mean, Latifi qualified 17th, he ended up starting 11th. I was like, this is fucking bollocks. So I never bothered watching qualifying. But yeah, for Max to start so low down, to come through the field so cleverly, so smartly. The Red Bull was in a different league, I'm fully aware of that, but he could have been caught up in some dramas in the early laps, but kept his nose clean. So yeah, full 10 points to Max Verstappen. Congratulations to him on a solid weekend where he extends his championship to almost 100 points now, is it? Crazy stuff. So yeah, 10 points to Max. And in second place we come to Checo. Sergio Perez, what could be said for his race weekend overall? He lined up second on the grid after qualifying initially third. Of course, Max dropped back, so that's where he ended up with the front row start. Pointed his car at an angle which was like, I'm going for science, and then he went like that, and then he ended up losing loads of places. He was behind both Mercedes, he got dropped by Alpine as well, didn't he? Alonso got through. So yeah, it was a shoddy start, a very shoddy start. His teammate was making places, Perez was losing them. I think Perez was very lucky as well, actually, that the Hamilton-Alonso incident happened to benefit him to gain two free positions back at the start because, yeah, it was just looking a bit difficult, wasn't it? So, yeah, Perez overall, it was the tyre strategy that got him ahead. of Sainz when Sainz was suffering the graining on the softs. It was all the Ferrari thing once again, wasn't it, with the tyre strategies not quite playing their part and asking the drivers loads of questions as always. So Perez was a solid second. Did briefly come under pressure from Sainz at certain stages of the race. It was also looking like it was going to be overtaken by Russell at certain points, wasn't it, with the way the strategies played out and the tyre compounds, etc. But in the end, Checo did a great job and finished second. But was it as impressive as Max? And the answer is no. And I think this kind of proved that Red Bull had the best car this weekend, because Perez made a big mistake at the start, didn't really have the pace compared to his teammate, but was still able to beat a Ferrari that didn't have any issues. So, yeah, I think the Red Bull was the dominant force this weekend. So for that reason, it's going to be 7.5 to Sergio Perez. It was an okay race. I mean, starting second and finishing second, you'd think fantastic, but really this should have been his weekend to win, with Max starting so far down. And if they're in equal cars, and you know, of course the team's always going to favour Max, but it should have never got to the position where it was having to let Verstappen through. That's in my mind anyway. You know, he's had to fight through all that traffic. Perez should have been away and gone off the line. It just didn't happen. So yeah, a great result overall for Perez and for Red Bull, but not a stunning weekend by him. So yeah, 7.5 to Checo. And in third place we have Carlos Sainz, smooth operator. He took pole position after Max, of course, had his penalties. So beat Perez, which is the only car he really needed to beat, and did a great job in doing so. Took pole position, was driving really well. He was away and gone, wasn't he, at the start? Of course, as mentioned, the incident between Alonso and Hamilton netted Sainz a massive gap, and you just thought, brilliant, he's got this. This is signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Thank you very much, honey bun. Sainz is off and away and winning this, but the soft tyres at the start didn't play Sainz's way. And overall, it was just the Ferrari strategy and the overall pace of those Red Bulls coming through to take victory, and second place as well, of course. So third place, I think Sainz was kind of happy with that, but maybe if he'd started on the mediums, had a little bit more pace out of those, we could have maybe seen him get second rather than third. But yeah, overall for Carlos Sainz, I'm going to give him a solid 8 points. I think from pole position and where his main title rivals were, in terms of course, Max and Lala, I think he should have won that. He should have been winning that, as should Perez have, really. I think both of them should have won it, but where Perez was lacking pace, I think Sainz was shafted by the strategy. So there you go. That's why he gets the additional half a point. But overall, a solid race weekend by him. I don't want to fault him or discredit him in any way, shape or form. A podium is still a solid effort. So yeah, 8 points to Carlos Sainz. And then we come to George of the Russell. Watch out for that top 5. And here he is once again. A stunning qualifying performance once again. He lined up in... Was he ahead of Hamilton or behind him? I can't quite remember now. But either way, they were alongside, weren't they? I think he was behind, or 5th. Either way, I might have got that wrong, but I'm sure he was 5th. Off the line, of course, got Sergio Perez. I mean, let's face it, who didn't? Drove really cleverly, really smartly. Was running around in the podium positions for quite a while. And overall just did a solid job. It was closing in on Sainz towards the end there, and then made a mistake towards the end, like final few laps, when he got like within 1.5 seconds. So could have been on the cusp of DRS to make it spicy. Lost about 7-8 tenths of a second with a small mistake of running wide, and that really just put him out of contention then with the final few laps to go and get Sainz. So a big shame in that sense, but still a 4th place finish is a great result, but I'm just going to knock a point off for that. So George Russell gets 9 points on the cruel run for me. I think he drove once again where Mercedes deserved to be, but could it have been more? This is what I always keep thinking, although having said that, you looked at the Mercedes and it looked like the shadow were faster than it. It was struggling so much down the straight for overall pace. It was such a shame to see. So yeah, for George of the Russell, it is going to be 9 points to him. And I've got a feeling with the other two Brits and how they did, he could be walking away with this Crawl Room Championship, I'm afraid to say. But please don't hate me, for God's sake. He's not biased, he's just done really well, hasn't he? And then we come to Fernando Alonso, finishing 6th across the line, of course, but finishing in 5th overall, because Shalala had a 5-second time penalty. We'll come to him in a moment, of course. But for Fernando Alonso, what a fantastic race weekend once again by Alpine. His teammate did a phenomenal job as well. We'll get to him briefly in a second. But yeah, for Alonso overall, it was a great start off the line. He had a great qualifying performance as well. He drove really well, and it was such a shame that the incident between himself and Hamilton cost him that damage in the front wing, and it was like the like winglet that goes over the wheel. I'm not sure what we're going to call that. I'm not sure if there's a specific name for that, but that was damaged and kept like raising up in the braking points, and that certainly hindered his progress. But when he finished 5th overall, that is realistically the best that an Alpine could ever imagine for. You know, if you think both Ferraris are still in the race, both Red Bulls are still in the race, and both Mercedes are still in the race, these rest of the field are fighting for 7th again, aren't they? You know, so finishing 5th, 10 points is a fantastic points haul, and Alonso really deserved those 10 points in the end. I don't think it could have been anything more special than that, to be honest with you. It really didn't. And 5th place is a phenomenal result. So overall, for Fernando Alonso, I'm going to award him a 9.5 on the cruel room for Fernando, because I just feel like he drove really well. Can't put a foot wrong, didn't put a wheel wrong really, but I just felt his teammate did something a little bit more extra special this weekend. And when we come to him, I think you'll understand why I'm just knocking a little bit off of Alonso's perfect 10. But overall, a great weekend by Alpine, a great weekend by Alonso. Didn't do anything wrong in my eyes. He was just perfect all the way through. Without that damage, it'd have maybe had a little bit more pace, but I still think P5 is more than respectable. So well done to Fernando Alonso. And then we come to sha-la-la. Oh, sacre bleu, sha-la-la. Oh my God, if it doesn't rain, it bloody well pours, doesn't it? He knew we were going to get engine penalties anyway, and he did all he could to try and finish ahead of those that were all fighting for the back of the grid, and he lined up 15th or something, was it? 13th? Or whatever it was, I can't remember. Back of the grid, but not at the back. And he drove phenomenally well. He drove so well, but had to pit under the first safety car, and only safety car we had of the weekend, because of a tear-off of the visors that got stuck in the brake duct, and that caught fire, which was a big, big shame, and that hindered his progress from there on in. He had to make his way through the field. By the time he got his way up to 5th, the other 4 had just gone off into the distance, and that was it, gone. And all he could hope for was 5th. And then Ferrari decided, I know, because I've got a cracking idea, lads. We're not safe to Alonso, but shall we pit him anyway for soft so he can try and get the fastest lap? And all the strategists went, yes, and for some reason Leclerc obeyed this, so they clearly told him it was safe from Alonso, and they lied. And then Charles sped in the pit lane, then got himself a 5-second time penalty. So he came out behind Alonso, spent a lap behind him, and then on the lap he was trying to get the fastest lap on, which was the last lap. He had to re-overtake Alonso, got past Alonso, finished a couple of seconds ahead of him, but then had a 5-second time penalty which put him back. So not only did he not get the fastest lap, but he also lost out to Alonso. So instead of getting 10 points, he got 8 points when the team were hoping he'd get 11. So in theory, a 3-point loss if you go with the Ferrari strategy, or a 2-point loss if they'd just, if they'd just not pitted him at all, it'd have been 10 points. It'd have been 2 points better off. So there you go. That's the Ferrari strategy for you. So yeah, big shame for Shalala. And overall, I am awarding Shalala 8.5 to Shal. I do blame him for speeding in the pit lane. He said it was a sensor issue after the temperatures got hot in that right front where the winglet was and where the tear-off strip landed. So maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But either way, he sped in the pit lane, didn't he? And overall, he had a great drive. I just think that Ferrari had tricked him and said, "Oh yeah, you're safe. Don't worry about Alonso. He's going to come out behind you," and he didn't. And that's it's so difficult to mark the Ferraris, it really is, because sometimes you have to give them bad, you have to criticise them for getting a 5-second time penalty needlessly. But at the same time, he didn't have to do the pit stop at all, but Ferrari lied to him. So, I know Ferrari lied. So there we go. Yeah, 8.5 anyway to Shalala, and the title is getting ridiculously out of reach now, isn't it? He's got to win 4 races, and then Max has to win DNF from 4 races, and then I think Charles is only a couple of points ahead. Is that how it works? I know it's nearly 100 points now, isn't it? Crazy stuff. So yeah, what a shame. The season that promised so much but has delivered so little in terms of the championship battle overall. But there we go. 8.52, shalala. And then we come to Esteban Ocon. Here he is, my personal driver of the day, and I'm sure a driver of the day to a lot of other people as well. What a cracking drive he had. So I can't remember if he qualified at all or where he qualified, but he was starting at the back, but not quite at the back, but he was near the back because he got engine penalties and he had to start at the back no matter where he qualified. But if he qualified, he started higher up than the back. There you go. That's how it works, and I bloody love F1 when it's like this. Pathetic. So yeah, Esteban Ocon, what a cracking drive. Started somewhere near the back, in and around the rear area, and stormed his way through so well, didn't he? We had 2 double overtakes from him during that race. 2 double overtakes. What a phenomenal, phenomenal effort. And he was close to his teammate at the end as well. Like, he was on the back of his teammate near enough in comparison. Yeah, okay, you know, Alonso finished 6th on the road but got elevated to 5th. But, like, you think where Alonso started and where Ocon started, with the team pace that it's got, Alonso extracted the maximum out of it to finish 5th. So what on earth did Ocon do to fight the cars around him that have clearly got the similar pace? I just assumed that all these cars that were down there that were suffering the penalties had struggled to get the way through, and some did, but Ocon certainly didn't. Strategy played a brilliant part in it. Right tyres at the right time from Alpine, and he just did so well, didn't it? Did so well and stormed through the field. Those overtakes, two double overtakes. I don't care if anyone says here about they're on different tyre strategies and they were just out the pit lane. Like, I'm not interested. Not interested in any of that. To do 2 double overtakes in a race, what an incredible effort that is. And he drove really cleverly, really smartly. And in theory, he finished right behind his teammate. Okay, his teammate elevated a position, but he finished right behind his teammate. So that needs to be commended. So it's going to be 12 points to Esteban Ocon. This is the kind of fire that we saw from him like Hungary last year, wasn't it? You know, where he drove so smart to defend from Seb. And we've seen brief flashes of it earlier in the season as well, but we've had that lull. Just coming up to the summer break, we had that lull from Ocon where Alonso was dominating, really getting all the points in, and Ocon was just picking up a couple, not doing anything too special. But here and now, that was special. That was really, really good. So well done, Esteban Ocon. Cracking drive. Superb stuff, mate. Really, really happy. My driver of the day, phenomenal effort. 12 points to Esteban Ocon. And then we come to Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin, and another great drive. I can fully understand if people think that Seb's driver of the day as well, because he drove so well, didn't he? Again, cracking qualifying overall. I think he got into Q2, didn't he? And then the penalties moved him up the order. Or did he even get into Q3? No, I don't think he did. I don't think he got into Q3, but early top end Q2, and then penalties took him up to the rear end of Q3. But the main thing is, he had a great start off the line, brilliant stuff, got himself as high as 5th, and then just stayed there, didn't he? It was only the latter stages that he started tumbling down the order, but for the most part, he stayed ahead really, really well. So we had the likes of Ocon sweeping past him, of course, in some overtaking opportunities, but other than that, you know, he just slowly made his way down the order, didn't he? But he maintained those points. He was always running in the points, and for an Aston Martin that's absolute dog shit, I think that's a very good effort. So qualifying or starting the race in around 7th, 8th, was it? And finishing around there as well. Fair play to Seb. It's a full 10 points from him. And a stunning effort. I was really pleased to see him there as well. These latter half people now that I'm talking about, these are all the ones I was... Because it was that long line of cars, wasn't it? And I was hoping, oh God, I hope all of you don't get mugged, but at the same time there's people out the points that I want in the points. And it was so difficult on who to cheer on, because everyone, I think, within that top 12 area deserved points. But obviously not all of them could get it, so there we go. But yes, Seb thoroughly deserved the points all day long, and it's 10 points to him on the crawl room. And finishing in 9th place is Pierre Gasly, and again, another one that could be in contention for driver of the day this weekend. This bottom half of the field, these last final point scoring places, all drove their hearts out to secure some points. Pierre Gasly started, or should have started, in 8th position. An electrical issue with the car meant he had to be pushed off the grid and start from the pit lane. Not a great start, that is it, but worked his way through. The tyre strategy was brilliant by AlphaTauri. Some great overtakes by Pierre Gasly as well that we saw, particularly on the Hassers, which were nowhere this weekend, but he still had to make his way around them because obviously when he pitted, he was down the order. He was right at the back and had to work his way all the way through again. Drove really, really well, and it was like the 11th, 12th area for a lot of it. I'm like, I can't understand how he's going to get into the points here, and he did it at the end. Fantastic, fantastic stuff. So yeah, I'm really, really pleased for Pierre. Did a great, great job. He got round Albon and then was able to break clear, wasn't he? That was a big part of his race there, getting around Albon. So great stuff by Pierre Gasly. So for Pierre Gasly, overall, I think he drove a stunning race, a phenomenal race overall, and considering where the AlphaTauri's been, how I've said and how much I've said Gasly has not been the Gasly that we've seen of the past. It's his first point score in 6 races. It was his first top 10 start in 5 races. Overall, really, really, really impressive drive. So it's going to be a total of 11 points to Pierre Gasly. He's getting 1 bonus point there. Thoroughly deserving that. From pit lane to points, that was a mammoth effort in that AlphaTauri car, and he's fully deserving of that. So yeah, a lot of drivers at the back of the grid, as mentioned, are so deserving of these points, and I'm so happy for them all. And Pierre Gasly, it's 11 points to him. And last of the point scorers is Alex Albon. Oh, I'm so happy. I am so happy. He drove so well, didn't he? Qualifying, I noticed he was into the Q3, and they said no matter where he qualifies actually in Q3, he will start no lower than 6th because of the way the penalties were working. And 6th he started. He stayed in and around that area for ages. He was briefly like 11th, 12th, wasn't he, at certain stages of the race with the tyre strategy and everything. But he drove incredibly well to hang on to that point, especially with the likes of Stroll, Norris, Ricciardo, Tsunoda and Zhou all lined up behind him in one train of cars that were like, look, we're coming through. And he held them off so well, especially down the Kemmel straight, you know, such a long straight. He didn't have DRS. He was obviously using the overtake button and the deployment of the ERS as much as possible down that straight to fend off those drivers. An incredible drive. We saw a bit of it. I'm sure it was a lot more lively than what we actually saw on TV, because the last lap or so, we didn't see anything of it. We were just watching Max, which is what always annoys me. Fair enough, yeah, Max crosses the line, brilliant. Get off and get with the rest of the race. They were like 50 seconds behind. You know, there's still a race going on for points, but no, we have to follow Max going into the Parc Fermé. Annoyed me, really, really annoyed me. So yeah. Overall, you know, Alex Albon, a phenomenal weekend overall. I'm going to give him a full 10 points this weekend, thoroughly deserving of that. And I know people are going to say, why aren't you giving him bonus points? But overall, you know, you have to look at the bigger picture. This would have been Alex Albon's day had it not been Gasly's day, had it not been Ocon's day, had it not been Vettel's day. And I don't want to discredit him in any way, shape or form by not giving him bonus points. But we know how great the Williams car has been in previous years around Spa, where there's less downforce required, and he extracted the maximum out of that car and drove so well to keep it inside the points, and he thoroughly deserves a full 10 points. And it pains me that I'm not giving him an extra 1 or 2, but when you have AlphaTauri of Gasly from pit lane to points, you know, you've got Ocon from back of the grid to a phenomenal 7th and just behind his teammate. That's the only reason in theory why I'm knocking him points off, if that makes sense, even though he gets a full 10 anyway. I just feel that it was a special race weekend this weekend, and let's not take anything away from that. It was incredible. I was so happy to see him. He was so happy with P10. The team was so happy with P10. It's more points on the board for a struggling Williams car. And Alex Albon is proving his worth once again. He's signed that contract for next year with Williams, and he's proven his worth. So congratulations, Alex. It's wonderful to see him, and he gets 10th place in the race, and he gets a full 10 points from me. Well done, Alex. I am thoroughly chuffed. And then just outside the points, we come to Lance Stroll, and it was borderline Palmer for me, but then the only reason why I didn't give him a Palmer was because he was shoved off at the start by Vettel. A little bit naughty, but that's racing. First lap's rubbing racing, and overall I didn't think it mattered to his race overall, because it's Stroll, so he pushes plenty of people off and crashes quite often. And here he is in 11th, and I can't even be asked to talk about him that much. Yeah, I'm sure the race was more eventful than I'm making out, and I'm sure there were things that went wrong in his life, and I'm really sorry that I'm only giving him 2 points on the cruel room, and I'm sorry that I were contending with him for a Palmer, but he really does just annoy me. I'm sorry, he just annoys me. And the fact is that Vettel was racing in the points all the way through. Stroll was borderline 10th at best, and he got stuck in a gaggle of cars, and he couldn't overtake a Williams. He couldn't overtake a Williams. So, I know the Aston Martin's shit, but when Vettel's up there as high as 5th, and Stroll's all the way down there doing jack shit, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered with him. So yeah, probably a very unfair 2, and people are going to start hating me. But then again, there's not many Stroll lovers on this channel, and not many people watch it beyond the top 10 anyway. I've seen the analytics. But nonetheless, 2 points to Stroll. I can't be arsed with him. New mindset, can't be arsed with him. I just, just the fucking point with him. So yeah, there you go. There you have it. 2 points to Stroll, and we're having done with that. I think is doing his just can't be arsed. I can't even be arsed talking about him. We're moving on. And then we come to Lando Norris, and here he is in a measly 12th, it must be said. He took penalties as well, I believe, and started near the back. I don't know if that's right or not, but either way, he was never really in the points, was it? It was a bit of a no man's race for him. It was quite funny actually, wasn't it? The last couple of laps, he was like, these tyres are starting to go off, and the team engineer's like, we've got no time for plan G now, I'm afraid. No time for plan G. Like, fucking hell, we exhausted that much of the alphabet already. Bloody hell, like a Ferrari strategist jumped on board this weekend. It was a nothing weekend by McLaren, wasn't it, overall? And a nothing weekend for Lando, unfortunately. It'd have been nice to see him in the points, and again, should he have finished ahead of Aston Martin and a Williams? Potentially. Ricciardo didn't either, though, did he? It's all just a bit of a shame, really, and Alpine getting some massive points up ahead, so their grasp on 4th place in the Constructors is they're losing that, and rather rapidly. They need to kick back stronger for the Zandvoort race weekend next week, of course. But yeah, overall for Lando Norris, it's just a middle of the road 5. McLaren, it were a nothing weekend really, wasn't it, by them? The penalties didn't help matters, but we've seen, as mentioned, Gasly pit lane to points. Vettel always up there, Albon in the points, and Ocon coming from the back. If they can do it, Norris definitely should have been able to, and he failed. He failed in that sense. Could it have been strategy? Could have been. Could it have been the driver? Could have been. And that's why it's just a middle of the road 5 to Lando. And then we come to Yuki Tsunoda, already disqualified on the cruel room, unfortunately for him, because of his poor season's performance. And this season, this race weekend really proves that once again, bit of a nothing from him, unfortunately. Gasly's points, Tsunoda's not. He was pit lane start as well. Should have happened for the both of them, but there we go, it didn't. So that's it. Yuki Tsunoda disqualified anyway, and that's the end of that. And then we come to Zhou Guanyu, finishing in 14th place overall. What could be said for his race weekend? It wasn't too bad, was it? The Alfa Romeo seems to have slumped away. Both Bottas and Zhou had penalties, didn't they? If I remember rightly, both were starting at the back or towards the back with penalties. So he struggled to make his way through the field, but finishing in 14th is sort of an Alfa Romeo area at the moment, isn't it? Bit of a shame, really, though. Bit of a shame. So overall, I've gone for a generous 6 for Zhou. It was very difficult to put his race into perspective, but I think when you're ahead of a McLaren, you're ahead of 2 Haas's, I think that has to count for something, especially with Zhou, the only rookie of the grid this year. He has put in some impressive performances, and this weekend I don't think it was anything bad by him. I just think the way the race played out just didn't go his way this weekend. And overall I think he's deserving of 6 points. I might be a little bit generous by a point there, in all fairness, but I think I've been harsh with him sometimes when I necessarily shouldn't have been. So it all balances out in the end, and as we come to the season's close, we'll see where he ends up on the cruel room standings. But for now, it's 6 points to Zhou Guanyu. Next up, we come to Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren, as mentioned, already disqualified on the cruel room, just like Tsunoda is, so we don't really talk about his performance, but I certainly can't be praising Danny Rick, can I, unfortunately? Bit of a difficult weekend once again, and a double McLaren no-point score, while Alpine are up the road, away and gone. So yeah, big shame for him. Disqualified on the cruel room anyway. There we go, unfortunate. Then we come to the Haas pairing of Kevin Magnussen and then Mick Schumacher, and I'm going to do these both together because Haas were nowhere, were they, this weekend? Once again, bloody nowhere. And this is the inconsistency of Haas showing through. They've never strung together more than 2 races of being able to score points in their entire Formula 1 career. And this weekend was nothing from them. They were racing around at the back with Latifi. So, you know it's gone wrong. I think they went on the hard tyres too soon, or did they start on the hards? Something went wrong. The hard tyres were working for some teams, weren't working for others. And I just think Haas just tried something and the hards didn't work. But either way. So for Kevin Magnussen, it's 5 points. For Mick Schumacher, it's 5 points. It's the middle of the road to the both of them. It's pretty much like they were a retirement, because they may as well not bother starting the bloody race. It was very, very poor, unfortunately, for them this weekend. And a shame, because I like Haas, I like K-Mag, I like Mick. But it just very rarely comes together. The highs are so highs for Haas, but the lows are oh so low. And this was a very, very low point for them this weekend, to the point where they're just finishing ahead of Nicholas Latifi and a Williams, which is not impressive at all, is it? So, there we go. An unfortunate race weekend for Haas, and it's just 5 points to Kevin Magnussen and 5 points to Mick Schumacher. And then we come to Nicholas Latifi.
Hey, 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 you've been disqualified, you bastard.
There we go, disqualified for Nicholas Latifi. I told you, didn't I, in the last episode, let me have until after the summer break to disqualify him. And he certainly deserved disqualifying. He sent it off into the gravel in the early stages. Was it lap 2, lap 3? It wasn't very much into the race, was it? Went wide, spun off into the gravel, and it was fine if he'd have took himself out, but instead he ended up taking Bottas out, and he was able to continue. So yeah, spat Bottas off. Bottas avoiding action. He was over the grass anyway, and they just clipped him, spun Bottas around, beached him into the gravel, and Latifi engaged reverse and carried on once again. But a big, big shame for Bottas in that situation. But for Nicholas Latifi, it's just Albon's in the points. You know, Latifi qualified 17th, which is nothing, and was able to start 11th due to penalties. I mean, that just proves how bullshit these penalty systems are when there's a lot of them having it. It was like the, was it 2017 Monza, where all the, basically qualifying didn't matter. Just may as well have just shook up a load of balls and gone, you're there, you're there, you're there, you're there. It really did annoy me this weekend. All these penalties, and they're all having to still go out and qualify because they want to start as high up as possible at the back. It's just silly. It's just silly. We need to sort this out. We need to give them more engines during the season, or lessen the penalties to team fines. And team fines will come out of the budget, and they've got a maximum budget cap this year. So I think that'd work better than penalising the driver a grid position. If they need to take an engine unit, they knock money off the team, and then that affects the overall development, or they've got to cut short the development somewhere. I think that'd work very well, to be honest with you, but there you go. But there'll be teams blowing up more than others, etc. I know that's unfair, but that's life. You should build a reliable motor. Yeah, overall, though, for Nicholas Latifi, I'm going off on a tangent there, but Nicholas Latifi shit this weekend, totally shy, did nothing to impress me, nothing ever. Albon's in the points, you're fucking crap. There you go. He's gone, finished, disqualified on the cruel room. Then we come to the retirements, sadly, and it is Valtteri Bottas up next. He's the first of the retirements on this list, the last in the race, of course, although his race only lasted 2-3 laps at best. Valtteri Bottas taken out by Nicholas Latifi, unfortunately. Started in 14th place, qualified 16th, 17th, somewhere around there. Didn't matter anyway, because he was starting higher up because he got less penalties than the other people that were having penalties, so he would have started at the back, but because other people had penalties, that meant that they were further back, then they went back behind Bottas, even though they were out-qualified. They all out-qualified Bottas, but Bottas started ahead of them because he got less penalties. So there you go, anyway, that was all that debacle. So yeah, potentially he could have had points this weekend, but he didn't even have a chance to prove it. So it's just middle of the road 5 to Valtteri Bottas, unfortunately. That's all I can give him. A DNF so early into the race. It's a shame, a real shame. On his birthday as well. How tragic's that? So yeah, unfortunate for Bottas. Could have had points, but never really had a chance to prove his worth. And then last but by no means least, this is of course Lewis Hamilton.
Sorry we could not give you a decent car, Lewis. That's okay, Toto. Great result, George. 4th. Keep pushing now.
And all I've got to say to that is, oh, Lewis. Oh, Lewis. Everyone will be calling it unjust that I've given him a Palmer, but he escaped one in Imola earlier on this year. But this time round, it was his own doing. He took himself out of the race. It could have been a podium this weekend for Mercedes. He broke away clear. He was doing really well. He got ahead of Perez. If it had just just thought about it a little bit more and just left Alonso that little bit more space, or just think about it and think, I'll get him another lap. You know, there was no urgency to do it there or then. 44 laps is a long time around Spa. Plenty of overtaking opportunities. DRS zones are plenty. He could have just thought about it a little bit more. He said that Alonso was in his blind spot, so turned in. But he must have known that Alonso was always still going to be there. I know Alonso was in his blind spot, but he knew that Alonso was in his blind spot, if that makes sense. Like, he knew of Alonso's presence was there somewhere, but he still elected to turn in as if Alonso had fully backed out of it. And we all know Alonso, he's certainly never going to back out of a move like that. And Alonso tried to go up on the curb and everything to avoid that incident as much as possible. But Hamilton just kept coming across and he went airborne and back down with a bang. I mean, I was surprised he ended up completing half a lap. There was fluid pissing out of it, so I'd imagine that would be broken. There must be broken suspension and everything. The way Hawaii went up, but how intact the car was when it landed, I was fairly impressed with that, I've got to be honest. So the Mercedes, though, that's why it's reliable, isn't it? It might not be the quickest, but it's certainly built like a brick. It didn't move much, but yeah, unfortunate for Hamilton. It has to be Palmer of the Week. Yeah, he took himself out of contention so early into the race and so needlessly. It could have been a podium, a Mercedes podium this weekend. Yeah, you know, he could have had the measure of his teammate. He was ahead of his teammate. It all looks like Mercedes could have done something this weekend. The car didn't end up being as quick as it should have been, admittedly, or what we all thought it were going to be. But it still could have been something, and he just took himself straight out of contention before the race even really began. So, big shame for Hamilton, and it's a Palmer of the Week to him. So there we have it, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the Belgium Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The scoreboard's updated now with the scores just given are on the screen now for you to look and enjoy. See who's the climbers, see who's the fallers. Yeah, just have a look, see where your favourite driver is now compared to where they were at the start of this video. A massive thanks as always go out to Dan of Mushy Gaming for providing me with this Cruel Room scoreboard. Without him, this series will be more pointless than it already is. And of course, a massive thank you to him as well for making the intros every weekend, because without him, that'd be crap and that wouldn't exist. So yeah, thank you so much to Dan there. And who of course could forget Mr. Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for the Jolie and Palmer skits that you all know and love by now. I will see you all next Tuesday at 6 PM. I'm so sorry to say that, guys, again, but once again, it will be delayed by a day. I'm at a couple of concerts this weekend to see Embrace, so seeing them on tour with my favourites, the Lottery Winners, as the support act. I'm really looking forward to it. Two amazing bands for the price of one. I honestly cannot wait. So unfortunately, that means, yes, there'll be no Cruel Room on the Monday at 6. It'll have to be the Tuesday at 6 PM. So, yes, thank you all so much for your patience. Thank you for joining in on me 24 hours later than planned, as always. 24 hours later again next week. I know, part-time YouTuber, bloody hell. How am I ever going to gain these subs? But yeah, thank you all so much for your continued support. I'll see you all next Tuesday at 6 PM for the Zandvoort, the Dutch Grand Prix Cruel Room. And I can't wait to see what happens there. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and as always, much love.